just a hack. He's just an absolute hack. And he gets his ass kicked by his teammates every week. It's just, it's terrible. It's just terrible.
The national championship just wrapped up, and it's never too early to reveal who we think are going to be the top 5 teams next season. So here's what I've got for you. The 5 teams that I think will be the best in the country at the start of the year, pending any crazy moves that go on during the offseason, which I'm sure USC or Oregon or one of these big programs is going to end up pulling a rabbit out of their hat and getting an unexpected transfer portal player. Starting at number 5, though, Oregon has to be brought up in this discussion. They cleaned up not only in recruiting by pushing themselves way up to the top of the recruiting rankings with some late ads for this 2023 class, but they also had a really fantastic transfer portal haul. I look at the fact that they added a Johnny Cornelius offensive tackle from Rhode Island, playing alongside a bunch of other really top recruits, and Justin Jacobs from Iowa, who frankly was being misused at Iowa at times, now gets to step into a really explosive, talented defense where he is going to be a premier player in Dan Lanning's squad. Now, the other big component here for Oregon is Bo Nix returning. Bo Nix coming back and somehow still has eligibility to return to Oregon. Having a veteran quarterback, and that is going to be a reoccurring theme for all 5 of these teams, having a veteran quarterback is so huge for success in college football. Having guys that have played in big games, know how to handle those situations. And Bo Nix, had he not dealt with injuries at the end of the year, I think that they would have been in that college football playoff discussion, maybe put up a better fight than what TCU did. But Bo Nix returning is massive, massive for the Oregon Ducks. At number 4, I know I give LSU a lot of crap on this channel, but LSU to me makes a ton of sense placing them at this 4 spot. Again, I lean on the fact that Jaden Daniels is coming back. He didn't declare. I thought he was going to be a Senior Bowl guy, but him returning to play for the LSU Tigers is massive. He started to improve slowly as the season went on and got better and better, and things started to work around him better as he was working inside Brian Kelly's offense. And I've said this for the longest time, that Jaden Daniels is the perfect quarterback for what Brian Kelly for years has been looking for. I saw all these different clones of Jaden Daniels that didn't really work out when he was at Notre Dame, but now you've got the guy. He's a strong thrower, a fantastic athlete, picks up tons of yards on the ground with his legs. I think that he is a big reason why, but let's also not forget to acknowledge the fact that Harold Perkins lit the world on fire with the late games that he had, the massive performances that he had against Arkansas and Alabama. He is going to be one of the best defensive players in the country this upcoming season. At number 3, Florida State deserves a lot of credit, the team that beat LSU, and these two teams go head to head, and this is going to significantly impact how their seasons go, how they're going to be placed in rankings. And heck, this loss might even prevent one of these teams from getting in the college football playoff. But Florida State, Jordan Travis, we saw, like I was just talking with Jaden Daniels, he really showed he deserves to be on the Heisman watch list for next season. Massive games. And I look at the way that he played against Oklahoma. That is so promising. But also Jared Verse, who I think was a lock to be a top 10, top 15 pick in the upcoming NFL draft, decides to come back. They also cleaned up in the portal with so many fantastic players that they added. And again, another really strong recruiting class. So Florida State, watch out. Mike Norvell has got the Seminoles rolling. Number 2, we have to talk about Michigan. Again, I'm going to keep pointing back to having veteran quarterbacks. J.J. McCarthy was inconsistent last year. In some of his biggest games and even in the college football playoff, he made mistakes that held back Michigan. However, returning some of those offensive linemen, Blake Corum comes back into the mix. I think that J.J. McCarthy this offseason takes that next step. More games under his belt after a full season as a starter, still a young player. A lot of promise for him as a former 5-star recruit. He has all of the tools, everything it takes to be great, and everything around him, assuming Jim Harbaugh stays. I think Michigan belongs in the conversation. I will say this, however. Jim Harbaugh leaves. I am not willing to say that they are the number 2 team in this discussion. They're going to drop out of that top 5. It is very hard to transition into a new head coach and go back to the college football playoff and to be a top 3 team. Now, for the sake of the fact that they just won a national championship and that Kirby Smart right now is the best coach in the country, they are the number 1 team in my way too early top 5. That's the only reason why. I think that this is a case of watch and see what happens, because they are losing a lot of players on their defense, and they're losing a guy that has played so many games for them at quarterback in Stetson Bennett. And as much as I've crapped on Stetson Bennett, he still was composed and ready to go and stood up to the occasion in so many games this season when they needed him to do so. And I have no idea who the starting quarterback is next year. Is it Carson Beck? Is it Brock Vandagriff? And are either of these guys good enough to even lead this Georgia squad? I wouldn't be surprised if after the spring, somebody big doesn't hop in the portal and doesn't end up at Georgia if either of these guys are not the man for the job. But again, I'm watching this closely. There's a possibility for an unexpected loss. The one thing that does help Georgia, they have a stupidly easy schedule next year. A very, very easy schedule next year that is going to help them likely get back in the college football playoff next season. If you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm missing somebody, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think, or hit that like button and make sure you hit that subscribe button as well.